verse 63. Udyani charamyani vichitre amadrume kunjat vihangamitune gayan matta madhuvrate. Udyani charamyani vichitre amadrume kunjat vihangamitune gayan matta madhuvrate. Udyani charamyani vichitre amadrume Kujat vihanga mithuner gayan matta madhuvrate. Would anyone like to recite the verse?
I'll try, Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji.
Udyanani cha ramyani vichitre amaradhrumai kujat vihanga mithunai gayan matta madhuvrate.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam. Can I try?
Yes, Prabhu, please.
Uddayane cha ramyani vichitroy amara drumai purjadiyanga mitunair gayan matta madhu vratai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji. Please go ahead.
Udyanani charamyani vichitrairamaradumai kujad vihangamithunai gayan matta madhubratai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else would like to recite?
Prabhuji, I am also trying.
Yes, Prabhu.
Uddanani charamani vichitroiramaradumai ujat vihanga mithunoi gayon matto madhu bratoi. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. So we'll do the word by word translations. Udyanani, gardens. Cha, also. Kamyani, very beautiful. Vichitre, various. Amardrume, with trees brought from heavenly planets. Ujat, singing. Vihanga, of birds. Mithune, with pairs. Gayat, humming. Matta, mad. Madhuvrate, with bumblebees. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The king's residence was surrounded by gardens, wherein there were varieties of trees brought from the heavenly planets. In those trees, there were pairs of sweetly singing birds and almost mad bumblebees, which made a very relishable buzzing sound. The purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In this verse, the word Amradrume, with trees brought from the heavenly planets, is very significant. The heavenly planets are known as Amarloka, the planets where death is very much delayed, because the people there live for 10,000 years according to the calculation of demigods, in which our 6 months are equal to 1 day. The demigod live in the heavenly planets for months, years, and 10,000 of years according to demigod time. And then again, after the result of their pious activities are exhausted, they fall down to this earth. These are the statements that can be collected from Vedic literature. As the people there live for 10,000 years, so also do the trees. Of course, here on this earth, there are many trees which live for 10,000 years. So what to speak of the trees on the heavenly planets? They must live for many more, many 10,000s of years, and sometimes as practiced even now. Some valuable trees are taken from one place to another. It is elsewhere stated that when Lord Krishna went to heavenly planets with his wife Satyabhama, he took Parijat, a flower tree from heaven, and brought it to the earth. There was a fight between Krishna and demigods due to the Parijat tree being taken from heaven to this planet. The Parijat was planted in the palace of Lord Krishna, which was occupied by Queen Satyabhama. The flower and fruit trees in the heavenly planets are superior, for they are very pleasant and tasteful. And it appears that in the palace of Maharaj Utanpad, there were many varieties of such trees. Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Akshurulmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Guratam Vitantam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanamitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Radha Kanta Namasute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radha Vindamneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimade Bhaktivedanta Swami Namne Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pacharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Vasha Siddhasarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So we'll recite this translation once again. The king's residence was surrounded by gardens, wherein there were varieties of trees brought from the heavenly planets. In those trees, there were pairs of sweetly singing birds and almost mad bumblebees, which made a very relishable buzzing sound. Zzz, like that. So we can see in this section of Srimad Bhagavatam that so much opulence is mentioned, like marbles and jewels of walls, best of the beds, gardens with heavenly trees. And we have seen in previous verses like gold furnitures. So nowadays we don't see such opulences. And sometimes it gets very difficult for us to understand and even conceive such an opulence. With the cost of living going up so high, and there are so many people living below poverty line in the world, and recession coming so close to us, so many people struggle for their 2 meals. And many of the people in even Western countries, they struggle to pay up their mortgages. So what to speak of the gold furnitures and rest of the gardens, they struggle to maintain their house. So it may be very difficult for us to understand the opulence of these kings. But yes, this is a fact. We also see similar opulences in Ramayana. It is mentioned in Ramayana that the walls which surrounded the Lanka, which was made of pure gold. Nowadays, we value the gold in terms of grams and ounces. But in Lanka, there were walls, huge walls. They were just made of pure gold. And they used to cover the entire city. And even the decoration on the street, they were made of diamonds and jewels. And if this was the opulence of demon king like Ravana, so what to imagine the opulence of the Ayodhya, the Lord's kingdom? And what will be the opulence of the religious kings like which is mentioned here? So this context helps us to understand that this is not just fiction, it is a truth, and it existed. And why? Let us take some moment to think about why there was so much opulence in the past with these kings. The main reason is that because the people in general and the kings were very dharmic, they were very religious. So let's take the story of Ravana, who did lot of austerity, get such opulences and so much of strength. Even when Hanuman went to see the Lanka and he saw the opulence and then he glanced over the Ravana, he was amazed. And Ravana had attained all of this just based on his austerity. He had so much of strength to even defeat Kuvera. He snatched Lanka from Kuvera and even the Pushpak Viman. And he also defeated Indra. He was so powerful. All of this strength he got was based on his austerity. In material world, we get sometimes mesmerized by seeing people's opulences. But if someone is very strong and opulent, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are devotees. One can become powerful after doing some asuric austerity, the austerity in mode of ignorance. We have seen so many demons in the pages of Bhagavatam who gain a lot of strength based on their austerity in mode of ignorance. The Bhagavad Gita talks about 3 types of austerity: in goodness, passion, and ignorance. People in demoniac nature, they do austerity in mode of ignorance. So this austerity in mode of ignorance, it gives the benefit because austerity is austerity, right? So it gives some benefit to them, but it is very short-lived. So Hanumanji estimated, looking at Ravan's Lanka, that there's all the opulences and the strength that Ravana had will not exist for long. And we have seen that in Ramayana, that it finished very quickly. Similarly, in the past, there were religious kings. They are also called Rajarshis. They also do a lot of austerity, and they had very huge opulences. Their people in general were very religious as well. And because of this, their opulences lived for a very long time. It went after generations. And we can see in the Srimad Bhagavatam so many stories of such kings, specifically in 9th canto. And we can see those opulences went for many generations because all these generations were also very religious. So wherever there is a religiosity, the opulence continues. And the moment it stops, start diminishing. We can see in New Zealand and America and other countries that people sometimes win billions of dollars through lotto overnight. And many of them lose that opulence in the same life in just few years because all the opulences they got, it was received without austerity, without religiosity. So it doesn't last for long. So we can see this practically in the stories of our real world. So one can think that why there is so much opulence in the heavenly planets. The reason is simple, because people in general are devotees or religious. Even though they have an enjoying mentality, they have a lot of material desires, but they are devotees. They are very religious. We can even see that today in the recent generations of King of Jaipur. So this kings of Jaipur, I'm talking about Govind Dev temple there. These kings were at that time were initiated in Gaudiya Vaishnava traditions and even now as well. And these kings created the Govindji temple within the walls of their palace. So as soon as they wake up, they will have the darshan of the Lord. And they don't need to go far away to have the darshan of the Lord, just within the palace of the kingdom. And we also see when you go to Jaipur there, you can see so many big, nice gardens with many flowers and many trees, all for the Lord, all for Govindji. So we can see that how these kings were very pious, religious, righteous. Similarly, all of us will have some opulence in our life based on our past karmas and Krishna's mercy. If we don't use this in Krishna's service, then it is very short-lived, like Ravana's opulence. It is said that Lakshmi is always engaged in Krishna's service. He is always serving Lord Narayana in some way. If we don't engage the Lakshmi in Krishna's service, then she is very chanchala. She doesn't stay at those places for very long. So Prabhupada talks here in this purport about the trees and gardens, and some of the trees in King's Palace were from heavenly planets. So the word here used is Amaradrume, which is Amarloka. So heavenly planets are known as Amarloka. So let's talk a little bit about Amarloka here. In my previous class, we saw a little chart with the durations of our life and the higher planetary systems. The similar things is mentioned here, and Prabhupada mentions that. So the demigods, one day is like 6 months for us. So the day is like just 12 hours, right? So if you do a 24 hours, it's like 1 year for us. And similarly, the demigod live for that 10,000 years. That is very, very long. So that's why it is called Amara Loka. It's not Amara in the sense that they will never die, but it's very, very long from our calculation. I was researching something about this, like some small insect. They live only for few minutes, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes from their birth, death. And if you compare the life of their life compared to our life, they may think that the human being's life is very, very long and we are immortal. Similarly, in this context, this higher planetary systems, people are called Amara or it's called Amarloka. In fact, in this material universe, there is no planet which is eternal other than Dhruvaloka. And it was seen in previous yuga, so the trees were talked about there, that the trees were brought into this planet. So we can see that in the previous ages, people used to travel between different planets. And there are so many examples, like Arjuna was going to heaven to learn something there, to get some weapons. And even the story of Parijata is talked about. So let's talk a little bit about Parijat tree, how it came to the earth. So once Indra was very tormented by a Bhaumasura, a demon. In fact, this demon was the son of the Lord. When Lord Varaha rescued Mother Earth, with that contact with Mother Earth, the son was born. He was Bhaumasura. And this Bhaumasura was very powerful. He was tormenting the heavenly planets. And then he took away a lot of things from Indra, his mother's rings and those things. So Indra came to the Lord Krishna and said, "Can you please help me?" Krishna said, "Okay, I will help you." When Lord Krishna went, he also took Mother Satyabhama with him. And then Krishna fought with the demon, killed him. And before he came back to Dwarka, he thought to inform the Indra that I have done your job, it's done. So he went to the Amravati and through the Nandankanan for a garden there. And while going back, Satyabhama saw that there is a Parijat tree, and he remembered the incident that Narada Muni once brought a Parijat flower and Krishna gave it to Rukmani. So she also wanted similar things. So Krishna plucked a flower, gave it to Mother Satyabhama. Satyabhama said, "No, I want the entire tree." So Krishna said, "Okay, let's take the tree." So they plucked the tree, and they uprooted the tree, and they was going back Dwarka. The Indra got to know about this, and he got furious. He just forgot that Krishna helped him just a few moments ago. And he started opposing this, and he was ready to fight with Krishna. As we all know, Krishna defeated him. And they brought the Parijat flower tree actually to the earth. In Dwarka, it was placed in the palace of Satyabhama. And the entire place became very beautiful. It is also mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam that when the tree was transported to the earth, so many bees were hovering around the tree. They also came with the tree as well. So that's what we see here in Madhuvrate with bumblebees. They also come with those trees because they're used to that environment. So it may question someone that how come the Indra immediately wanted to fight with Lord? So this is the nature of heaven, that whenever there's so much opulence, it gives some intoxication. And it is very hard to do some devotion sometimes in heavenly planets because of intoxication of the wealth and opulence. It is also very, very difficult to do some bhakti in lower planets because of so much of torture and so much of struggle. So the earth planet is the best platform to do the best bhakti. So we should take our best endeavor to the bhakti in this life, because we are very fortunate to be born on this planet. And so we can see so many incidents of some trees coming from other planetary systems. There are some fruits as well we see in this earth planet, which comes from heavenly planets. Does anybody remember which of the fruit that comes from heavens, which we see here today, and we can access it as well? Does anyone know? The fruit that we all can taste comes from higher planetary system. Okay, that's a mango. Mango comes from higher planetary systems. And it is now we have access to that mango because it is the most sweetest thing, the king of all the fruits. In scriptures, it is mentioned that in the higher planetary systems, there are so many lakes and streams of mango juice. It is mentioned there There are big, big mango trees, like miles long trees. And the fruit, the mango fruit that comes is quite big as well. And sometimes when the mango becomes so ripe, falls, and it breaks, and the juice flows as a river and streams. It is amazing to see that the rivers and streams of mango juice is there. If you see such situation in our planet, then what will happen? Many people will go with their containers and dabbas and everything, and they will take all the juice and they will start storing and start freezing it so they can use it for an entire year. But in higher planets, people don't do such. They are very satisfied. They just take what they need and they leave the things as it is. They don't hold on to the things. So similarly, there used to be a lot of opulence, as we see in these verses. So much of opulence used to be there on Earth. And there was so much of transportation. People used to travel to other planets. And there was very less differences between higher planets and earthly planets. We can also see that in Satya Yuga, the age duration of the humans were very long. So it is quite similarly, we can say in that comparison to the higher planets, it was quite close to the higher planet systems. In Satya Yuga, the rain used to happen only at night and in just right quantity. People could travel between different planets easily. And there were no 4 varnashram. There was no 4 varna at the time in Satya Yuga. There was only 1 varna, which is called Hamsa. Slowly, gradually, the difference started increasing. And in this Kali Yuga right now, the difference is so much that people even don't believe that there is something like higher planets exist. And in general, people's lifestyle and faith has so degraded that we can't understand the heavenly opulence. That is why the demigods of heaven, when they visit this, because they can still travel these places, earth planets, when the demigods keep traveling to our planets, their aeroplanes or themselves, they are not visible to us. They can make them visible to us, but they don't. Because they know that people in Kali Yuga don't have faith and they are not qualified. They are not qualified to see the Lord. What to speak of demigods? Similarly, the difference kept on increasing between heavenly planets and earth. But the incident that we see in this verse is very common, to have people visiting from one planet to another planet, and transportation of goods like trees, fruits, flowers from one planet to another planet. Now only we see the transportation of item from one country to another country. So there was no question like, where is heaven? The people in general in Satya Yuga, they had no question like, where is heaven? Does it exist? They all knew it, just like people in Auckland would know that where is Hamilton and which motorway to take to go to Hamilton. Similarly, people knew that in where is the heaven and how to go there. And here we see so much of opulence and luxury of the kings. But we should not envy this. Neither we should desire for such opulences. Because all this opulence is very insignificant when compared to the Krishna Prema. Even Dhruva Maharaj, after attaining a Dhruva Loka, he says that, I was looking for a broken pieces of glass, whereas your darshan is like a diamond and devotional service is like a diamond. Why did I was running behind the pieces of glass? So he regretted so much. So we can see this example by, for example, in a one plate, you see the Mahaprasad of Gulab Jambun, Alfonso mango, and so many very nice sweet dishes. And on another plate, there is some dirt. So if the person is in a good mental health, will they ever consider the dirt over the Gulab Jambun and mangoes and all those things? Similarly, we see from the scripture that all this material opulences is like a dirt, whereas the Krishna Prema is a real sweet thing. So if we are in a right consciousness, we will never aspire for these things, or we will never envy for these things as well. We should always desire for this. Srimad Bhagavad Gita 2.59 says, Vishya vinivartante nirahare sadehina rasavarjam rasopyasa param drashtva nivartante. It is just a matter of higher taste. Once we know this higher taste, everything else seems very low. we should aim for developing this heart is by engaging in devotional service more and more. We should pray to Krishna that we should only have desire for Krishna's lotus feet and service to his devotees to just perfect our life. Many times while doing a bhakti, we get some opulences like puja, la pratishta, we get followers, fame, positions. Sometimes we get also control over people. But we should be very, very careful. If we get stuck into these things, then our bhakti gets destroyed. Therefore, we should always remain humble. And with devotees and outside devotee sangha as well. We should never expect any respect or prestige. Amanya mana dena kirtina sadhari. Like this, in a humble mood, we should be engaged in service to the Lord and his devotees. And thus, we can make our life perfect. There is mentioned Udyanani cha Ramyani. So this section of the verses talks about a lot of opulences. And sometimes we may think that why so much opulence is required for devotees and kings. So there's another context which I remember, which comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Sisi Madila 23:39 says, Vaishnavera Kriya Mudra Vigyana Bhujaya. It is very hard to understand the Vaishnava's behavior sometimes. So when we see now in the previous, what I talked about, we understood that what should be our mood in terms of these opulences. But when we see some devotees or Vaishnavas, the kings in these opulences, we should not see them negatively, because it is very hard to understand sometimes advanced Vaishnavas' behavior. So there is a very nice story of Punrik Vidyanidhi which comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Punrik Vidyanidhi was a very advanced Vaishnava, very great Vaishnava. And when he was living in the city, only Mukunda knew that how advanced and exalted he is. Because Punrik Vidyanidhi used to dress very nice silky garments. He used to live in a very nice palaces, and with so much of opulences around, so many servants, and he used to have betel nuts and so many things like that. Total material opulences. So externally, it may be hard for people to understand that he is a very exalted devotee. So once Mukunda took Gadadhar Pandit to meet Punrik Vidyanidhi and say that I'll show you a very great Vaishnava. And when Gadadhar Pandit saw this, it was getting a little bit hard for him to understand that how come he is a great Vaishnava. So Mukunda just noticed this and he chanted this very nice verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 3:23. Aho bakiyam stanakalagutam jihamsya prayaya api asadavi labe gatim dadri uchitam tatonyam tamma dayalum saranam vajema. This verse talks about Lord Krishna's mercy onto Putna, that she came to kill Krishna, baby Krishna, but he gave her a position of a nurse in a spiritual planet. So Krishna is so much merciful. As soon as Mukunda chanted this verse, Punrik Vidyanidhi started tearing off his clothes. He started rolling on the ground, and a stream of rivers started flowing from his eyes. And all the ecstasy of the prema exhibited in him at that time. So we can understand that it's very hard to understand the Vaishnava in that way from external behavior, and we may make some offenses. We should be very careful not to judge Vaishnavas by their externals, and we should try to remain humble. So let us all take shelter of the Lord in the form of holy name, and with a humble mood, as taught by Srila Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya, chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So thank you very much. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Prabhu,
Prabhu.
Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji.
Beautiful explanation and understanding of the text. How we understand this difference between the heavenly planet and this our material planet. You have beautifully explained with the examples that really tells us to understand the differences between the heavenly planet and this our material planet. And with the good examples that really strikes me to remember how this has been clearly explained by our beloved Srila Prabhupada, the Samara Drumoi. So you nicely explained. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for your insights of this text. It looks like very small text, but there's so much information inside, and
Yes.
we hardly know about it without a proper devotee explains us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji. It's just all the Vaishnavas from whom I have heard this. I'm just passing and repeating as it is. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dhanur Pranam.
No problem, Prabhuji.
Thank you for such a wonderful explanation of this verse. It's amazing that you mentioned that we don't, the demigods are not even visible to us when we are not qualified. So what to speak of the Lord? The people want to see the Lord face to face, but we are not even qualified to see the demigods. Very interesting, because in this verse and the previous verse, there's a lot about this discussion about interplanetary travels, And now, if you relate to current time, there's a lot of some controversy about UFOs and other objects that seem to be visible, but sometimes this people don't believe it. So they're spending so much time and money to locate and understand UFOs. But here, it clearly mentioned how the devotees to do interplanetary travels with vimanas, which are made of gold and had domes. It's not like in the previous, as Prabhupada explained, that they were not made of base aluminum metal, but they were differently constructed. So rather than taking the information from this Vedic literature, a lot of people are just speculating, and they spend so much money on UFOs. But here it's clearly mentioned this interplanetary travels where I was very very routine, So thank you for giving this explanation. We still have got a few minutes. Any devotees want to have comments or questions, reflections?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavad Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, you have mentioned very nicely that the demigods, the interplanetary movements between the demigods and as well as even in the recent times. Recent, I mean, even in the Kali Yuga, also in the beginning, when Parikshit Maharaj was about to leave his body, and at that place, the description in our Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 19, it is also mentioned that even the demigods came at that time as well. So it is not that only in Satyayuga it was there, but with as you have mentioned rightly, with the passage of time, we are gradually drifting from, even in the Kali Yuga in the beginning, which it was during the time of Parikshit Maharaj, gradually it has slipped. And now it is very hard to imagine that the demigods really exist. Even they come to us very often and they help. And it is our responsibility also to cooperate with them so that the whole ecosystem works. And it is also mentioned in that chapter that the demigods are even pleased when they see the devotees from here is going to the Lord's and the abode of the Lord.
Yes.
So the ecosystem was very nice at that time. I mean, that should be, but unfortunately, the situation is so deteriorated now. Our concept, everything is very few people have now the knowledge that we have to cooperate with them even to get the mercy of the Lord. Thank you, Prabhuji, for
Very true, Prabhuji. Even I remember one incident. The people from higher planetary system used to visit even in Prabhupada's time as well, because there's one incident which I remember hearing from a devotee that when Prabhupada was giving a class, all of a sudden what happened that Prabhupada's voice choked and Prabhupada paid obeisances all of a sudden. And devotees after some time asked, what happened, Prabhupada? And Prabhupada said, Narad Muni visited, because we were having a Bhagavad Katha. Narad Muni was visiting this place. That's why he paid obeisances. So Prabhupada could see Narad Muni coming there, but not many other people could see that. So even in recent times, we can see people traveling from other places as well in Kali Yuga itself. So thank you, Prabhu, for sharing that as well. It was really good.
We also in the non-Vedic tradition, I read some time back that there were a group of shepherds, and they had a vision of Mother Mary. Actually, they could see flowers raining, flower petals raining, you know. And it was not only visible to the shepherd, but a lot of other people in that vicinity saw this incident. I think it's recorded in Christian literature. So that gives more evidence to the fact that there are higher living entities who can visit us. It's just that we are not quite qualified to see them. And just to assume that these are fictional, as a lot of people assume these days, it's not very not very possible. One has to have implicit faith in the Vedic literature. There are a lot of evidence to support this, but because now this thing is not given much prominence and people became very atheistic, they just take it as fictional. Even some of the Sanatan writers, they are not very convinced. This is factual. They mentioned things like fictional. What is the normal what they use? This is the Vedic literature is like fairy tale type of things.
Mythology, they call it.
Oh yeah, mythology. Yeah. And some writers, authors, especially this one person in I think Odisha side, he's writing all these things like as a mythology, fairy tales. And a lot of young people are reading his books, and they're saying it's just a story tale. So, but they don't read Srila Prabhupada's books. There's so much convincing evidence that this is actually happening. Thank you, Prabhu, for enlightening this.
So Prabhuji, you are referring to Prabhuji, I think Nandabaji Prabhu was referring to Devdutt Patnaik's books. Yeah, they have become popular but useless books often. People, it has no, it is a, man-made interpretation of the mundane mind. Prabhupada has rejected it from the beginning. So we should not pay any importance to them at all. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, but he's getting a lot of traction from young people, and a lot of people who have similar views. They are sort of advertising his books. There people are interviewing him and getting so much publicity. So it's very dangerous. So thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. That's why we often hear the question, no? Oh, can you prove the God's presence? That's why, because of this question arises. But in earlier days, in the other yugas, we can see the Lord. And that is the proof that our Bhagavatam is giving us. Lord presence is always there. We can't see because of our conditioning. The moment the conditioning opens up, you can see the Lord. So there is an existence of the Lord. You can't deny it. And these are all Shastric evidence tells us, no, that's the fact. Once upon this Srila Prabhupada, when he was writing his Bhagavatam, that time he saw this Rupa Goswami's appearance, and Rupa Goswami was blessing him. Don't worry, you keep writing, everything will be in line. So that reminds me how this picture shows Rupa Goswami's presence and dictating Srila Prabhupada to write his scriptures. So these are the evidence. Even nowadays we can see through Srila Prabhupada's experience and examples. These are even true. Only the thing is, you have faith. If you have faith, that will automatically revive. So bhakti is a process which revives this faith, and with this process of bhakti, we can see the Lord in our hearts. So there is no question arises why Lord is not there. He is there. We don't have the chakshu to see him. That's why I can't see. Thank you, Prabhuji. That's what I have to talk about.
Thank you for a very nice comment. So anybody else want to have any reflection, addition, deletions? Okay, so we'll end here. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming this morning to participate in Srimad Bhagavatam class. Special thanks to His Grace Parjanya Prabhu for giving very wonderful explanation of this verse. Parjanya Prabhu ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Gopta Hari Bol. Panchakaratana Vaishya Kripa Sindhuvacha. Patidana Pavani Vaishnava Guru Namani.
Ananta Kodi Vaishnavindra.
Vaishnava ki jai.